Welcome back to Getting After, my friends. Today's guest is none other than ChatGPT. I decided that it might be a fun exercise for me to talk to ChatGPT, make it act like a listener, and make it ask me some questions. What are my answers to those questions? We're going to find out. So let's jump into it. My friends, I appreciate you tuning in today. Welcome to the Getting After It podcast. I am interested to see how this conversation is going to go today. It's the conversation with ChatGPT that I'm about to go into here, but I decided it might be fun just to take a few transcripts, like audio transcripts from previous episodes, put them into ChatGPT, and then ask ChatGPT to act as a listener and ask me some questions. That's exactly what I did. And so I took 7 transcripts, put it into the system, and then the prompt was this. I'd like you to act as a podcast listener. You are someone who both listens to Getting After It and you actually get after things in life that you want. After looking at these transcripts, I would like you to come up with some questions that I can walk through and address in my next podcast episode. Think we can do this? And then he said, of course we can do this. And then he spit out 15 questions. So, question number 1. What's the biggest lesson you've learned from doing 100 plus episodes of the podcast? I talked about that in the 100th episode exactly, but I would honestly say that the biggest lesson I learned, other than being consistent and that small wins add up over time, is that you really can learn and develop a skill and hone in on that skill and get better at it over time. Because if you go back and you listen to episode number 1 or any of those that are before number 10, even 10, like I don't think I was a decent podcaster until maybe episode 100. So now I'm just getting the hang of it. But it showed me that you can, in fact, tune a skill. Old dogs can learn new tricks. And you can get better at something if you're passionate about it and you have interest in it. And podcasting is always something that I've loved to do. And at least like for myself as a hobby, I'm starting to take it a little bit more seriously now. But I've also just been an avid listener for many years. I've learned a lot, and I've felt like, this is something that I can hopefully pass on some of the knowledge that I've learned to others and help them in their own goals. And it's been a fun journey for me. It's been an education. And honestly, there's a lot that I have learned on this journey. And so the biggest lesson I've learned is that, yeah, it's an education. And you learn a lot about yourself along any journey that you go on. And the podcast is just getting started. Like this, it's not going to stop anytime soon. So don't get your hopes up. But a lot of lessons learned. But I talked about that in episode 100, so I'm not going to bore you with keeping on that list. But number 2, what's a recent challenge you've had to overcome, and how did you handle it? Well, I'm kind of still going through it, honestly, right now. And that's my wife and I we're doing distance, kind of. It's not the best. It's not my favorite thing ever. She is based in Mesa, Arizona as a pilot, and oftentimes has to be down there when she's on reserve. And I'm up here in Utah because I have to be in office. And so it's been difficult just not having her nearby because, you build this life together with someone you love, and you get so used to their company. And then all of a sudden, something like, she has a job in Arizona happens, which is awesome, but it's difficult to handle. And like, especially when I have, a hard day at work and my favorite thing is to come home to her and just hold her for a second and just let the worries of the world wash away and drain out of me. Like, I don't have that, but it's a challenge for sure. Like I've felt loneliness now, a lot more than I have recently in the past because I know what it's like to love someone and to have them close by, and now not having them close by is hard for me. But it's also interesting because it gives you a different perspective. Like I talk about gratitude a lot on this podcast, and I'd be a liar if I said I wasn't grateful for the times that we are together way more than anything. So it's like we cherish the moments when we're together much more, which I am very happy that we do that. Very blessed that we do that. But then it also gives me a different perspective to think, there are others out there who struggle with being alone. And like I feel for that, and I wish I could help. Like, that is not an easy situation to be in. And so I think it's just going along day by day. Like, Allie and I are still very strong in our relationship. We always make sure to call one another and catch up on each other's day, see how one another's doing. And like, she's everything to me. She's my best friend and the love of my life. And so I think that's why it hurts so much when she's gone. Number 3, you talk about discipline a lot. I think ChatGPT is calling me out. I do talk about discipline a lot. You talk about discipline a lot. How do you personally balance discipline with flexibility? It's a dance. It really is a dance. There will be times in your life where you are going to have to be flexible with your schedule. Going back to being, apart from Allie for some time, last week was Valentine's Day, and she was on reserve most of the week. And I like to be in my routine. I like to have everything set up to where it's like, I wake up, work out, go to work, come home, sit with Allie, eat dinner, write, work on the podcast. Like, that's pretty much my day every single day. But being flexible is something you have to learn. It's almost as difficult to learn as learning discipline itself. And last week I decided, since Allie couldn't come up, I was going to have to be flexible with my schedule and fly down to Arizona so I could spend Valentine's Day with my love. And the discipline part only came from the routine piece. Like, I still had to do my routine, which meant I still needed to wake up and exercise. I still had to work my full day. I still needed to write, to work on the podcast, and do all these things to help me progress forward to my goals. But that piece requires discipline. And I'm sure, you travel to a new place, or traveling itself wears you out, makes you tired. And it's hard to bring that discipline back. And, anytime I travel, I'm always like, oh, I'm kind of on vacation, but I'm really not. I'm just in a different place. And so I think being flexible is important, but it's a thing you learn alongside discipline, because Jocko talks about how you can be too disciplined in one thing. Like, you can be so rigid that where it can be negative. And I think what he's trying to get at there is you need to be flexible with just everything. Like, if you're going to go work out, but your son calls you with a flat tire, and he's like, Dad, come help me out. Like, I'm on the side of the road. I have a flat tire. But if you're like, nope, sorry, I'm going to the gym. It's on my schedule. You shouldn't have done it at 10:30 at night where I usually go to the gym. And your son's like, but Dad, like, I'm really scared. And he's like, sorry, your fault. Like, that's not a good parent. What would happen is the dad would go help the son with the tire and then go to the gym. Like, bring the discipline back, because he had to be flexible. Like, he still had to take care of his other responsibilities. And so sometimes responsibilities are going to vie for your attention more than others, and I would just say listen to those. Is there a quote or a mind shift? This is number 4. Is there a quote or a mind shift that has fundamentally changed the way you approach life? Well, yes, there is. And if you can see here what I'm wearing around my neck, it's a little bronze washer with a laurel around the edges, and it says, the credit goes to the man in the arena. That's a quote from Theodore Roosevelt. It says, it is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there's no effort without error or shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. That quote fundamentally changed how I look at life, because what I learned from that quote is that the people who are actually trying to get after it, they're trying to pursue goals that they were scared of when they were younger, or they're trying to get that new promotion at work. They're trying to start a new fitness journey, but they're afraid to try, but they do it anyway, knowing that if they fail, at least they failed trying. You gotta push yourself. You gotta put yourself in the arena. When it's scary, when you feel everyone's eyes on you and you have the risk of failure looking right back at you, stare back at it and smile. Because what else are you going to do? You don't want to be average. You're not listening to this podcast to be average. Great quote. Number 5, what's a habit or a system you've built recently that has had a major impact? I talked about this in the last episode, but time blocking for writing. Like, I know it's on the calendar. I know I have 30 minutes every lunch period to go and write. And sometimes it turns into the full hour, which is great. But that honestly is just like, I know it's coming and I sit down, no excuses, I get it done. All right, now we're getting into deeper, harder questions from ChatGPT. Let's see what it got cooked up for us. Okay. Have you ever struggled with self-doubt while running this podcast or in other areas of your life? If so, how do you work through it? Of course I do, ChatGPT. Come on. Everyone faces that. Everyone has self-doubt. Like, that's a human trait. Humans will doubt themselves. This podcast, for sure, I've doubted myself many times, and I struggled a lot in the beginning with imposter syndrome. Like, who am I? At the time I started, I was like 25 years old, and I was like, man, I'm just some kid in the basement. Like, I've done some cool things. I've gone through a couple hard situations in my life, but who am I to give people advice? To tell them that they need to be living a better life and that they need to be a little bit stronger and more disciplined. Like, who am I? I'm still getting over that. I will thank my wife for helping me with this because she says, you have the evidence to back it up. You have the evidence to say, like, hey, this worked for me. It might work for you, but here's the results that came from it. And I am a lot more confident with the things I talk about now because, yes, like, I've struggled with a lot of different forms of self-doubt all my life. When I was younger, I talk about how I was fat Brett. And the self-doubt was more self-critical, so I don't necessarily think it was doubt, but I doubt myself in everything. Like, but it's negative. Like, it's not a helpful thing to reminisce on what you don't have. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think it's good to. Let's bring the promotion example up. If you're going for a promotion at work and you're not necessarily sure if you're the right most qualified one, but you can put the work in, you can be coached and you'll get the job done to the best of your ability, but you're afraid to even put your name in the ring. Put your name in the ring. Like, you're going to doubt yourself the whole time, but just realize that it's natural and we're all trying to figure out life together. Like, I don't think everyone has it all together. We're all trying to figure it out, and people will have their opinions. That's one thing I've learned while doing this podcast is people have their opinions. Some people, the concept of getting after it and doing difficult things and pushing past the pain, I've been called out for that. And people are like, you're an idiot. Like, that's horrible advice. Why would you run when you have pain? It's like, you're an idiot because it's actually a conversation with discomfort to see how far I can keep going. Anyways, it's like anytime someone says something, like, it's going to cause a little bit of self-doubt. But if it's important to you, if the thing that you're doing is important to you more than other people's opinions, then keep doing it. And that's what I would say is, like, if you have a passion for something and your passion is stronger than what you think or what other people's opinions would matter to you, or however you want to phrase that, then do the thing. Like, life is finite. And at the end of the day, everyone's kind of worried about their own problems to think about your own. So they might have their opinions, but that opinion will last for 30 seconds. People like to get outraged. It doesn't matter. And so self-doubt, yeah, it creeps in every now and then, especially like I'll post a good episode and then the next few will kind of just tank and not really go anywhere. And I'm like, man, am I really cut out for this? Do I actually have the talent that I need? And, it's just something you have to work through. Number 7, you often encourage people to just start. But what do you say to someone who feels paralyzed by fear of failure? I would reread the Theodore Roosevelt quote, "The man in the arena," to you. But most importantly, I would read this part. Who spends himself in a worthy cause, Who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. You don't want to be with those cold, timid souls who don't know victory or defeat. The only way you don't know victory or defeat is if you just stay stagnant. If you stay comfortable, if you don't even try something difficult where you might fail. And the thing is, if you're paralyzed by fear and failure, I'd ask yourself why. What's the worst that could happen? Like, are you going to lose everything that you have? Is it going to hurt and sting a little bit if you fail? Yeah, for sure. Are you going to die? Probably not, unless you're sky jumping or doing the squirrel suits. But that's the thing, is like, everything good in life is hard to get. And everything good in life usually comes with a little bit of fear before. Like the podcast. Pushing upload on the first one was hard for me. Anytime I toe up to a race line, there's always nerves in my stomach. Going after a new job, a new promotion, like, there's a lot of nerves because you're making a big lifestyle change. Marrying the girl of your dreams, a lot of nerves because you want to make sure that you can provide for her, take care of her, and do all this stuff. But those are all examples from my life. Let's say I didn't do any of them. If I was worried about marrying the girl of my dreams, Allie, and I was scared that I wouldn't be the best husband that I could, and I was so scared that I didn't even take a chance to be a husband and to ask her to marry me, I would be miserable. And when I think about that time when I was going to propose to my wife, which is almost 2 years ago, there were nerves, but I also was confident because deep down I was like, you know what? She's the most important thing to me. She's the most important thing moving forward in my life ever. Besides Jesus Christ, Allie's number one. And I'm going to work my ass off to make sure that she knows that, to make sure that she's taken care of, to make sure she knows she's protected and loved. And I had that idea in my head that I was going to push myself in every single way possible to make sure I could take care of my wife. And I took the step. And what I realized is the quote, "Fear is a mile wide and an inch deep," is very true. Because once you step into it, it's not that bad. You could just walk through it. And if you're paralyzed by fear, really figure out what it is that's bothering you so much. And then ask yourself, one, what's the worst that can happen if I do this? But then two, am I comfortable living with regret when I'm older? Question number 8. What's something you once believed about success or personal growth that you've completely changed your mind about? This one's easy, ChatGPT. Money buys you happiness. Doesn't. Nope. The more you focus on money, that I feel like the more it controls you, the more it consumes you. And I've learned that when you focus on just being responsible and living in your means and just doing, taking smart money management skills and putting them to work, life's just a lot easier. You have to worry about money. And then, yeah, sure, you can buy nice things every now and then. But what brings you happiness is being fulfilled in your life. And what brings fulfillment, for me at least, is the quality of your relationships. And, people matter the most. The only reason life is great is because of other people. You have an iPhone. That was made by others. And actually, that was a big accusation. I don't know if you have an iPhone. You might have a flip phone or an Android or something. So sorry about that. But money doesn't buy happiness. And it's funny because everyone says that, right? It's what Chris Williamson calls a unteachable lesson. And that's something that you have to actually experience and go through. People will say, fame won't bring you happiness. Money won't buy you happiness. But you think in your head, that doesn't apply to me. I'm going to make a bunch of money and see. And then you make a bunch of money and you're like, whatever. It's fine. By all means, I'm not saying I've made a bunch of money. I'm just saying this is a realization I've made with success, because running's another good example. running, I've never made $1 from running, and it's something that's painful to go through and very difficult, but the joy that I feel in achieving, and then the happiness I feel just throughout my week as I'm training my body, and I feel good. Like, that can't buy you happiness, but I feel happy from it. So what does that tell you? I don't know. I'm sure I'll find out some more things here later. But question number 9, do you ever feel like you're holding yourself back in some way? If so, what's stopping you? And how do you plan to overcome it? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, everything I'm talking about with like the fear of failure, with, self-doubt, all these different topics that ChatGPT threw my way, they're all things that I struggle with, and I'm trying to get better on myself. And I do feel like I'm holding myself back in some capacity. And one, sometimes I think I'm too nice. And I have something I want to say to someone, and it's out of love, but it is a little bit direct. Like, I don't want to say it because I don't want to hurt their feelings. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of interesting. It's a double-edged sword, but I feel like if I was more direct with people, one, they would appreciate it more. But two, I guess people would trust me more, because they would know that like I would tell them what I think, and that's probably an important thing. So like not sugarcoating feedback to others. I don't know. Yeah, but I feel like I hold myself back in a lot of ways, either talking myself out of things or not going after something because I don't think I'm qualified. But I'm stopping that. I'm trying to get better at that day by day. Question number 10. What's a moment where you felt like quitting but didn't? What kept you going? Ooh. My ultra marathon race. That was tough. It was a 30-mile loop. Or I guess it was 7.5 mile loops 4 times, but 30 miles total. And at the halfway point, I thought I was having a heat stroke. I thought I was dying, and I was throwing up. I had no food in me. I was super weak. My wife just ran with me, and she was like super worried about me. But I didn't want to stop. Like, my body was yelling at me. It was telling me to stop, but I was like, I want to get this done. And I was running for my friend Jordan, who at the time had stage 4 colon cancer. And I just kept thinking of him. And then I kept thinking of Tim Murphy, who's my wife's dad. And he passed away in 2020 from cancer. And then I thought of my cousin Landon, who is 9 years old, and I don't know what type of cancer he has, but he's still fighting the battle. And all these people who, they are doing they are dealing with something that is probably the most difficult thing in their life. A sickness that is hell to go through yourself, and then to watch a loved one go through. Like, the way cancer is, it is the devil. Like, the way Allie talks about how it just slowly like took away her dad is heartbreaking. And so I just kept thinking of those people who, they can't run. And I kept telling myself, run for those who can't, run for those who can't, like, run for those who can't. And so I decided to stay in the race. I said, I committed to this. I'm running for Jordan. I'm running for Tim. I'm running for Landon. And I just kept fighting the battle. And I think the reason I was able to do it was because I was focused on others and not myself. Because oftentimes, if you just think about the pain you're going through, running is another great example, just like a regular training run or like a long run on a Saturday. There are times when you're just like, I just want to quit. And it's so easy to. Like, you have no one that's holding you accountable. It's just you versus you. And you can. You'll be the only person who knows. But like, I wanted Jordan to know that I was willing to stay in the fight for as long as I was, and to do something I've never done before because I loved him. And that's what I would say kept me going. It's just thinking about others. All right, question 11. If you knew you had only 1 year left to live, how would you do it differently? I'd quit my job. I'd quit the podcast. And I would just spend time with those I loved. That's it. Question 12. Is there a moment in your life where you learned the hard way that you weren't as disciplined or resilient as you thought? How did you course correct? College, I would say. I thought I was always this disciplined person, or not disciplined, but like I always thought I was a hardworking person growing up. But it wasn't until college where I realized I had to balance school, work, and a bunch of other stuff like my social life, all together, and it was tough. But I started implementing more and more of Jocko's principles that he talks about, and I started seeing how I could just try and get a little bit better at, making sure I was focusing on my studies more and taking time to actually learn. And I had to be disciplined in my fitness because no one was holding me accountable for going to volleyball practice, or my mom wasn't making me meals. Like I had to do it all myself, and I didn't think, I had it in me. It was a skill I had to learn. But over time it came, and it was just through consistent practice. 13, what's a hard truth about life that more people need to hear, but few are willing to accept? What's a hard truth about life that more people need to hear? I would say a hard truth that I've had to learn is that you're all on your own. Like, no one's coming to save you. No one's going to be there for you, being your superhero, patting you on the back when you finish a 9-mile run in the basement at a 7:19 pace, which I just did. But no one's here patting me on the back. No one said anything. And I'm fine with that. I'm not trying to complain about it. But if you're doing things for the recognition of others, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. If I was doing it so I could, be like, hey, everyone, check it out. Check out my pace. Look at how many miles I ran. And I don't know. It's just, it's a hard truth. It's a weird one. But I would also say that the long game's where it's at. A lot of people want quick fixes. They want, the diet that's going to make them lose 10 pounds a week, or they want the fitness routine that's going to make them look like Arnold, or they want, the job that's going to pay them $500,000 a year where they don't have to do much. They all want these easy things, but it takes time, and patience is the key factor here. You have to be patient in all the things that you do, and you have to be willing to suffer a little bit and understand delayed gratification. Because only then can you be consistent, and only then do the results show up. I've done 100 and this will be 108 episodes of the podcast. I haven't made a dime. That's not the goal of this thing, though. And so, all I'm saying is, if you want the podcast, if you want the podcast that has 3 million listeners, it's not built overnight, and it takes time. Anything good in life will take time to build, and it is a ruthless process sometimes. But if you want something, set your sights on it, make a plan, and stick with it for the long haul. 14, in the grand scheme of things, why do you think discipline, grit, and pushing limits matters? What's the ultimate goal of all of this? What is the ultimate goal of all that? Damn, ChatGPT. Swinging. Some good questions here. I think the ultimate goal is just to get better. It's just to be a better person. Whether that's in fitness, if it's in your personal relationships or your profession, you just want to try and get better every day. Because human beings are capable of so much, and it's amazing what some people can do and what others cannot. But the whole goal of life should be to see what you can, to see what you can accomplish, see what you can build, and who you can help along the way. Because ultimately, there will be times when you question why you decided, to push your limits that day. Do you have the grit? Do you have the discipline? Do you have the willpower? For me, it's a demonstration to myself that I have control over myself, that I don't have to listen to all the different thoughts in my head or satisfy every single craving that comes in. And it's like I'm in charge. My mind's in charge. And the only way to do that is to tell it, hey, sometimes, you know what? Today we're getting up at 6 a.m. We're gonna log 13 miles. Like sometimes you have to be the general and you have to tell yourself what you're gonna do. Because otherwise, what's the alternative? You don't want to be lazy. You don't want to get out of shape. You don't want your body to get unhealthy. You don't want to lose your job and, start to struggle financially. Like all these things can be avoided if you just continually push yourself. And yes, things will come up. You will get fired from your job. Okay, now your job is to apply like nonstop to other companies and just to always set the bar higher. I don't have kids yet, but I can only imagine that will increase more for me when I have a kid, and I want him or her to be inspired on what they can accomplish in their lives. I had great parents who always told me that I could do anything I wanted if I had goals set and I was driven enough to do it. And my dad, he taught me the importance of education and of learning and of reading. And, without that influence, I don't know if I would be who I am today. And so I think also a big part of it's giving back. Like you want to work your ass off so you can inspire others to do the same. And if they have questions, they can come to you because you've done it before. And so the last question that ChatGPT actually asked is, if getting after it had a legacy, what would you want it to be remembered for? Which is a great question. I think I would want getting after it to be remembered as a tool to help you reach your goals. And I want getting after it to be hopefully inspirational to someone to where they decide I'm making a change in my life and it's happening today and I'm going to get after it. The success of this podcast is I think determined on if I'm able to help one person. If I can help one person make strides towards their goals, that's the legacy I want to live behind. Because I've been given so much and so many lessons I've learned from others. So many people have taught me, like my friend Drake, he taught me about discipline. My friend Bryce, he taught me about how to balance life and how to work hard in your professional life. And like all these people who have taught me very, very important principles that have helped me be successful in many areas of my life, I want to give back. And one of the ways I think I can give back is by inspiring others to follow me along on the journey and try and do something similar in their own lives. I want getting after it to be a lifestyle that when I die, people are still getting after it and they're talking about it and they set their sights on a goal, they reach it, and then what's next? That's the next question they ask. I want it to be remembered as something that helped someone in their, hopefully, one of their darkest moments. If they thought, I was struggling with self-doubt, but then I listened to an episode of Getting After It where Brett talked about, that self-doubt's going to come and it's going to be a natural occurrence in my life. And then I just took a step and I took a leap. Like that's the kind of thing I want to hear. That's the kind of legacy I want to live behind, is something that matters. And it's going to be hard to build. Like I don't think it's there yet. But over time, I think it will become that. And it's just exactly what I'm talking about. Like it requires consistency. It requires discipline and hard work and drive and grit and patience. Like I'm in this for the long haul. And so I don't know where it'll be in 20 years. But hopefully along that path, I can help one person reach their goals and be inspired maybe to help one of their friends do the same. Because ultimately, I want you to get after it. And I want you to get after it so hard that others look at you and they say, I want to be like them. And then I want you to teach them how to do it. That's the legacy I want to leave. So I appreciate you guys listening to this episode. It was kind of fun going through with ChatGPT and getting some questions from artificial intelligence. It will soon overtake us, so trying to get on its good side. But until that happens, until we are, taken care of by our AI overlords, share this with someone if it helped you at all today. And until next episode, everyone, let's keep getting after it. Thanks, guys.